Man, let me tell y'all something, right? I'm always impartial to looking for high heroic builds. Those are usually my favorite builds when it comes to heroes. I always like the heroic, but the melee with Black Panther with his defense it's kind of high for a high damage build, but this is more of an all-around Black Panther build. His high heroic build, it's really not all that, simply because his heroic abilities themselves, they're not really meant to deal a lot of damage. Like, they can, if you get your heroic stat pretty high, they can, but that's not really what Black Panther is about. Black Panther is honestly the most all-around character I've encountered in this game so far, so this is the best all-around build for him, in my opinion. It has high melee, what I consider to be high defense, because a lot of the high damage builds have defense below 1000, but this manages to have defense above. And not only that, but it does still manage to have a heroic stat of 2204. This is pretty good, right? So if we're looking at the stats, the might is what you're going to look for this time, right? Might is always for melee damage. So the might's at 403. Proficiency is lacking on this one, so that's not too good. But honestly, what we're mainly in it for is the might. We don't necessarily care about the critical attack chance this time. It definitely helps. It always helps, but this time we want to focus on the might because we wanted to focus on the melee because we want him to be good all the time. We don't just want him to be good. Black Panther's not going to walk in, he's not going to one-shot a boss, right? He's just not. He's not going to do a crap ton of damage in 5 seconds against a boss. It's just not feasible, but he's going to be good in basically every single situation possible. This man is very good. So when we look at the first piece of gear, right? So the melee piece. So what I love about Black Panther with his release is that a lot of his perks from his like hero set and stuff like that, they're so specific to Black Panther. Like, all of his skills are just so good with, like, I should say all of his perks are so good with the skills that he has, just like as a character. It's absolutely insane, right? So obviously we have a high might stat on this. It 20% increased stun status and overall damage while percussive blast is active. That right there, I mean, that is a fantastic skill. That is a fantastic skill. Percussive blast also, so this plays off of the third perk that's in this already. So the third perk is 121.3% increased critical attack damage while overcharged. Well, Black Panther's overcharged state is when percussive blast is active. So while percussive blast is active now, with this singular piece of gear, you have a flat 20% damage increase, and then you have 121% increased critical attack damage, all while percussive blast is active thanks to this one piece of gear. So this one piece is incredible. It is a part of his hero set. Now for legendary hero sets, I'm not sure if there are epic versions, but for the legendary versions of the hero sets, not the exotics, the legendaries, you can get them from elite vaults. So whenever you complete an elite vault, I'm not sure if you can get them from like DNA chests inside, but I'm talking about when you complete an elite vault and it gives you a guaranteed piece of gear just for completing it. That is what can be a heroic set. It is a heroic piece, but obviously you just have to test your luck on trying to get this specific piece, because it could give you this heroic set, or it can give you the set from the range, defensive, or heroic. So you never know, but I definitely got this from an elite vault. Definitely worth it. As far as I've heard, there's an exotic version of it that could be even better because the might stat could be even higher. But from my understanding, the exotic version is only available in the elite heroic hive, the one that's 14 floors. And I've tried to farm that a lot, and it takes a long time to do. So it's kinda, in my opinion, not feasible because exotics don't drop from that at a high rate anyway. If an exotic was guaranteed to be given as a completion reward from the Elite Heroic Hive, then I'd be for it, but since it's not even a guaranteed chance for an exotic, it doesn't seem that worth it to me, so I would just try to strive for the legendary. So, when we're looking at the ranged, so the ranged is kind of just, it's meh. It's not that bad, right? The main thing that we're looking for is the might. That's what this is for. Has a high might stat. Might of 63 is actually pretty high for a legendary, right? So this is actually a very good ranged piece for increasing the melee damage, right? So not bad at all. Looking at the defensive, So right here, right, this is the best type of damage buff to have. I'll just continue to say this. This is the best type of damage buff to have, and damage buffs are currently the meta in the game right now. So this is a 16.2% chance taking damage grants a damage buff. And now this is an epic, right? So this is an epic, and I want to kind of make it a point that when you get to the level in this game that this is like this is like end game level, legendaries, exotics, epics, it doesn't really matter. Like, you can get an epic that's better than an exotic. Like, in my personal opinion, for the build that I like for Black Panther, this epic has been better than any exotic that I've seen for this slot. There are good exotics for this slot, but this one specifically, I just feel for me personally is just way better. So the 16.2% chance granting a damage buff, that's what is really going to kick in. That kicks in a lot, and it helps with the damage so much, right? So with the heroic one, this piece is so good. So this is an exotic for his hero set, Legacy of the Ancestors, right? So I mean, all of these perks are good. Literally every single perk for this is fantastic. The only thing that this piece of gear is missing is a might stat. Unfortunately, when it comes to exotics, the stat is fixed. It's not fixed in where, like, the number that the stat is will always be the same, but for exotics now, the stat that you get for a piece of gear will always be the same. So for the heroic exotic, for this piece specifically, you're always going to get Valor and Resolve. I think Resilience might be in there, but the point is, might is never going to fall on this exotic, unfortunately. So it is what it is, but the perks are fantastic, right? 20% increased damage and defense while Boss Chosen is active. Obviously, that's his ultimate, so that's just a flat 20% increased damage right there. That's going to help significantly. And then the second perk builds on top of it, right? Increases the duration of Boss Chosen by 8.5 seconds. Doesn't seem like a lot, but that is significant. Like, without it, this is a lot longer than it would be normally. So this is actually very significant. And then melee attacks slowly regenerate willpower while Percussive Blast is active. So if you have Boss Chosen active and then Percussive Blast on top of this, first of all, not only are you not dying, but you're hitting like a truck. Like, everything is hitting like a truck. When I have all the damage buffs possible, you'll see it. I'm probably going to put it at the beginning of this video, but you'll see it even at the end. Wherever I put it, whenever you see this in action, you'll see, like, I'm hitting like a kick for 70,000 damage. It's absolutely ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. So when we're looking at the minor ISOs for this, so for this specifically, you're going to want, in my opinion, minor ISOs that have the might. So you're going to want to increase his melee as much as possible. So he's hitting everything hard all the time. So try to find a minor ISO that has just might on it, preferably epic, because that way you can get to 150. You can always get some rares, but you're only going to be able to cap out at 148 if that's the point. So the only way you're going to really find these, have a good chance of finding the epics, is from the Inhuman and Shield factions. It's always going to be the case, unfortunately. There are a couple methods that I've seen to try to farm for epics, but they just kind of fall short for me. Like, they almost never work. I mean, you could, don't get me wrong, you could always get a minor epic like this from a chest from anywhere randomly, but it's just very rare from what I've seen. So your best bet is always going to be the Shield and the Inhuman faction vendors. And then, of course, you know, last but not least, a major artifact, always going to activate the Sacred Norn Stone, right? This is going to be the best damage buff possible, but then as soon as you activate it, you can go ahead, pause, and switch to the Tactagon, which is going to increase your melee and your heroic stat. So if you're able to switch to the Tactagon after activating this, you're going to do the maximum amount of damage possible. So that's always the strat when it comes to a melee type build or a high heroic, is switching to the Tactagon, because it'll always give just that little boost. But when it comes to a ranged build, it's not necessary always, because it doesn't increase the range that much. It mainly affects the melee and the heroic. But that's going to be it for Black Panther. I mean, you'll see Black Panther is so all around. It's crazy. He honestly is the most fun character to play in the game right now, because he can hit like a truck still, and he's just never dying. He's actually incredible. He's a technical type of character too, when it comes to how you have to play with his intrinsic ability and stuff, and he's just great. So if you enjoyed this video, feel free to leave a like, feel free to subscribe for future content, and I'll leave you with this build in action, but thanks for watching.